As a CFO, you obviously have to work with the business units in a company very significantly in order to understand what the company does on a day-to-day basis and how the company actually makes money. And as part of that, you do have to understand where the company would be going over the next, 1, 2, 3, 5 years. And as a result, a senior finance executive really needs to understand what he or she does in their job in order to support the strategy and to take the business unit with whomever they're working at that point in time forward. So it's just very natural for a senior finance executive to not just understand the numbers, but to also go into the strategy of each business and then work with the business people to enable that they can actually fulfill the strategy. CFO jobs have never been static over many, many years, but in particular in the last 3 years where at least in the United States, but also in a number of other countries in Europe, etc., we all faced a significant financial and economic crisis. The CFO had to be, changing trajectory in terms of what they can help with the business. So first of all, every CFO helped the business units to identify risk and how to actually navigate that risk, how to get their hands around it, how to manage it. But in addition to that, especially if the top line of a company, i.e. the revenue growth of the company, is not anymore what it used to be, the CFO had to work with the business units quite significantly on where our expenses going and where the costs are going. So that was pretty much the focus of the last 3 years. And then at the same time, that's just a temporary time. You have to still continue to set up the company for the future. So you have to figure out how you're not only focused on cost cutting, but how you're setting up the business units to be able to grow after the economy returns to something more normal. I mean, in order to become a strategic and a trusted advisor to the CEO, there are a number of things that the CFO has to do. First of all, it's the table stakes, i.e. the CFO really needs to understand the numbers, and they need to understand the numbers in the business context. And they need to be able to talk about complex things in a simple way that makes sense to the CEO and, by the way, to the rest of the management too. But that's table stakes. In addition to that, I think you really grow into the trusted advisor for a CEO if you, one, truly understand the business and understand the business drivers and can help him or her not to just focus on the financial outcome of a particular decision, but what does it mean in an overall business context. And 3, I think what's really important for the CFO to be able to do in a good manner with the CEO is point out issues in the company that really need to be worked on and that need to be changed, i.e. be a relatively outspoken advisor to the CEO and not hold back. Actually, it was only my second earnings call. Okay, so since we're on earnings calls, we can talk a little bit about that. I actually did that earnings call by myself, so the CEO wasn't there. And it was only the second one in my job as a CFO. And actually what happened on that earnings call is that after my prepared remarks, we had about a half an hour available for question and answer sessions. I was the only person who could obviously answer the questions because I was the one who was introduced. And because of the type of results that the company had actually been producing, there were rapid fire questions coming from the analyst community. And what I didn't quite realize, given that it was only my second time, that the questions come so fast at you that you can actually not even prepare in your own thinking what would be the appropriate answer and how can you answer a question the way that you really need to answer the question for the benefit of everybody on the call. And so my big learning out of this is don't do your earnings calls alone. Always have somebody with you, because then you can actually, move the questions between the two of you, and even though you answer maybe 3 questions in a row, you can maybe get the relief for the 4th question. My number 1 advice is always be several steps ahead of everybody else. If you are not thinking, 5, 6, 7, 10 steps ahead of everyone else, then you invariably have an issue later on. So always think about any topic that you're dealing with, any type of engagement that you're dealing with, any business unit issues you're dealing with, is really think about what is going to happen down the line, and then reflect back on your own course of action in terms of what do you have to do today in order to make sure that down the line you get the desired result.
Yeah.